Welcome back then folks to of course the second build of day 4 in Special Projects pack number 14. This time a car which some of you will have guessed is of course fictional. We've got multiple versions of the C7 Corvette in the game and they're pretty much all really good. This one though is of course a rally version, and again if you've been following Special Projects you'll have seen I've done a couple of these fictional ones or versions that were in different games that I've kind of ported over to here, like from Dirt Rally for example with the Mustang GT4R and the Camaro GT4R. This time I wanted to add a Corvette into that lineup, and also it makes for a good rival to stuff like the 911R GT Rally Car and various others that I've done as well. Now I did the livery for this one myself. I wanted it to very much have that old like Gran Turismo original race car kind of vibe. And I think subconsciously to some degree I might have been inspired by maybe the old Camaro LM race car, which always was one of my favourites for its livery. I've done 5 different versions of this one. There's black, white, yellow, red and blue, so you can choose whichever one you want. I also very much so picked the kind of colours which you would see in those kind of original vehicles. In terms of the parts though, of course we will jump into the upgrade shop. There's not too much to do on this one because again I'm trying to keep it around the same kind of territory as the Mustang and the Camaro. I was using Dirt Rally 2.0 I think it was for the specs on those. This one of course being fictional, you could change things around if you wanted to, but I'll leave that down to you. As far as the ultimate section, to jump there first, you don't need to worry about anything cancelling out lower stuff. As far as the sports stuff, you want your stage 1 weight. Of course it has the sports hards fitted anyway. For the club sports section, your power restrictor, ballast and dirt tyres. Perhaps surprisingly, I don't have any more weight reduction, and again that's to keep it in the same kind of power and weight territory as the Mustang and the Camaro. As far as the semi-racing stuff, the fully customised computer, the diff I've gone for, as I quite often do with my rally cars, the fully customised manual box. The rigidity, like I always say, you could do it if you want to. It does give you a very slight increase on points. I'll leave it up to you, as I always do. As far as the racing stuff, surprisingly nothing fitted there. I haven't opted to do my usual technique of having like the different sound and that kind of stuff because I didn't want to go too crazy with having to restrict the car and, you know, sacrificing the power curve and all that kind of stuff just for the sake of a sound. So we've got the drilled discs. Like I always say, you could go for the ceramics, you could go for slotted, vented, it's all up to you. We've got the racing pads, of course race suspension, the clutch and flywheel, and then as far as the extreme stuff, the hydraulic handbrake for manoeuvrability, and of course the steering angle adapter as well. So like I said, not too many parts to fit on this one, and also as I said, because it's not real, and also because it fits kind of between the Camaro and the Mustang, you could change the specs around if you want to. So if I recall correctly, I think the Mustang had like 550 horsepower, I think it was, something like that, whereas the Camaro I think was like 450, I want to say. I think that was the kind of difference. So I wanted to make this one somewhere in between without being too crazy on points, and likewise with the weight. I seem to recall it's up around a similar territory. I think it might be somewhere between the two again there. That's pretty much what I was aiming for. If you want to change it though, you know, nobody's stopping you. It's not like there's any kind of event to use this sort of thing really in any way. So we've got the dirt tyres fitted. As far as the suspension, 125mm on the front, 135 on the rear, 4 for the anti-roll, 30 and 40 for the dampers, 2.65 on the frequency for the springs, 1 degree of camber. As far as toe, it's towed out, 0.5 on the front and 0.5 in on the rear. As far as the diff, I've gone for 30, 30 and 20. For the manual box, it's a fairly long ratio actually for a rally car. Typically I go quite close, but for this one 330 kilometers an hour. The reason why I've gone for that is because of course being rear-wheel drive anyway, but also a sports car, I don't know, sometimes even if you get the right weight, if you get the right weight distribution, if you match it up to something bigger like a Mustang or a Camaro, it will still feel twitchier because of that smaller body, because of the aero of the car. There's just so many factors that change how a car is going to feel, even if it has similar specs to something else. And this one being twitchier, it also likes to just kind of hit the red line too much. And of course that's down to you as the driver, how much throttle you give it, but one of the ways that you can help that is by having longer gearing, so you don't have to be changing up and down quite so much. So that's what I've done. You could give it closer ratios if you want to. I guess I'll leave it up to you. As far as the ballast, I've got 150 kilos to bring us up to 1500, of course. I've put that 0.10 toward the front, so still a slight front bias, but not by too much. No power restrictor adjustment, a slight adjustment on the ECU, just because I like the idea of it having 475 horses. As far as downforce, I've gone for the highest, front and rear. Everyone has their own preference there, so of course you could change it if you want to. And over here, everything, or the couple of things, in other words, that we fitted are fitted there. And ultimately on points, it seems like no matter what power level we've got, all of my rally builds kind of end up in a similar sort of area, like the mid to high 500 region. So that's it for the build. Of course, now we need to jump out onto the dirt to show you what it can do. Now, in terms of my notes on this one, it's funny because the two Corvettes from this particular pack are the two most challenging vehicles. Of course, the Art Morrison 1960 Corvette, which you'd expect to require more focus. This one, because it's a Corvette being taken on the dirt. So it's kind of a given that it would require a slightly different approach. The Mustang is definitely the most forgiving of the three, and this one is not quite as quick as the Mustang, but with that power disadvantage, it's not too surprising. So, like I said, you could bump up the power on this one or drop the weight if you wanted to keep it a bit closer, but it also depends on, driving style, driver preference. In terms of using it, very similar advice to the Goodyear Pontiac GTO, which I did a couple of days ago, which is don't showboat. Pretty much like with the Pontiac, keep it straighter, approach it as if you were on the tarmac, keep the racing line, and I would also say, if you are, as I would always recommend for rally builds, using a manual box, then I would definitely say you need to let the gears run through. So what I mean by that is, don't change up as soon as you start hitting the red line, because when you do, it will bog down too much. Of course, that is a byproduct of having the longer gear set, which is the downside potentially, but it's only a downside if you change too quick. So in other words, if you've got it in a corner and you're in like second or third, let it bounce off the red line until you're out of the corner, then change up. And within a lap or two, if you change up too early, you'll start to notice the right point to change gear. So the learning curve is pretty quick on a car like this. Ultimately, it's just something a bit different. I wanted to have a nice rival for the Mustang and the Camaro, like I said. So if you do decide to use it, maybe you've got a C7 lying around that you're not doing anything with, which is probably the case for many people, given that the ZR1 is more popular, then of course I hope you have a lot of fun with it, and of course pick one of the 5 colours, or maybe more than one, if you're a fan of those. And of course, I'll see you tomorrow with more special projects, and naturally check out the other ones which I've already done this week. But for now, thanks for watching.